Microsoft invents thin clients. Google might have to split off Chrome, and AMD is gonna split into the phone market. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news that you can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. We're gonna start off today talking about Microsoft's, they had a big event yesterday and they got the attention of people with their new Windows 365 Link desktop PC. This little guy's gonna cost $349 and it doesn't run anything locally. It does connect to Windows 365 in the cloud, but not actually being powered anything on the device itself. It has a whole host of I/O, has an important Ethernet port, and can connect to various things. Tom's Hardware says that it doesn't come with storage, which isn't quite true, but it has 8 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, and an undisclosed Intel CPU to allow it to connect to the cloud and run everything that Microsoft wants you to have at your fingertips so that you can be trapped into their Windows ecosystem completely. It only has Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, not Wi-Fi 7, but it has 3 USB-A ports, a USB-C port, so that you can connect all the various different dongles and witch-watch that you want to put on the PC itself. But it's a tiny little small PC costing $349. Microsoft could have priced it at $365. That was a good joke that Videographer made in their article covering this, but it's supposed to come out in April of 2025, and everything that I've read about this is that it's an RDP client to connect to an Azure server, so it's not anything revolutionary. Thin clients have been around forever. It's just that this is now going to be connecting to Windows in the cloud specifically and not meant to do anything else. It's not meant to run local apps. Now, does that mean that you can't find a way to hack it and put something like a different operating system on it? Probably not. I'm sure people might pick this up and tinker with it in order to have it run things locally, but it does look like it's going to be underpowered for doing anything substantial. And so it's weird. Comes in at a weird price too. $349 is quite expensive for what they're offering here, especially when you compare it to what Apple just released earlier this month with the new Mac Mini. That's a 10-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 16-core neural processing unit, 16 gigs of RAM, a 256 gig SSD, has gigabit Ethernet, 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, an HDMI port, 2 USB-C ports in the front, a headphone jack, and that all goes for $250 more than this 365 Link, unless you have an education discount, in which case it's $499, which makes it only $150 more than the Windows 365 Link. But it's just, there's a better value mini PC out there where it's like, I don't know that the 365 Link does a whole lot that makes a whole lot of sense unless I'm missing a use case for it. But with this, Microsoft also rolled out a new logo for Microsoft 365 with Copilot, and it's that. They just slapped M365 on it, and that's great graphic design. It's my passion. Well done, Microsoft. But in case you want to build a real computer for yourself and not just be at the whimsy of a tiny little device that can't do nothing, you should check out today's video sponsor. I want to take a little time to talk about a really nice PC case from Silverstone, who also happens to be sponsoring this video. Here's the Farah 515 XR. This case has great bang for the buck, starting at $68 for the black version and $75 for the white version. Both come fully equipped with 4 rainbow 120mm fans out of the box, so no need to spend more money to upgrade cooling like you have to do with most budget-minded cases. Rainbow fans are not RGB, they automatically cycle through all colors whenever powered on. This case is packed with other premium features though, such as vibration dampened hard drive trays, thumb screws for 2.5-inch mounts, side panels, and foam padding for the power supply. If you're tired of oversized towers and just want something that is affordable to build your gaming PC in, the Farah 515 XR from Silverstone is a great choice. You can check them out for yourself via the link in the description below. Big thanks to Silverstone for sponsoring today's video. Just like Silverstone's an important part of UFD tech history, they're our first case that we built in here on this channel. They've been sponsoring us for a while. Google Chrome is also a big part of Google. However, it appears that the Department of Justice in the United States thinks it's too much of a part of it, and so they're proposing that potentially Chrome gets divested from the main Google company. This is happening after a judge in the US has called Google a monopolist and saying that it used its monopoly power by charging super competitive prices for general search text ads, and that essentially essentially, they violated antitrust and they need to have some sort of mitigation to break up this giant conglomeration that is Google. Google says that the government putting its thumbs on the scale in these ways would harm consumers, developers, and American technological leadership at precisely the moment it's most needed. But it seems like the various different things that could potentially be suggested, a lot of people are focusing on the Chrome thing, but there's a wide range of options that could potentially go through with the US government here. Number one is nothing, and things could not change at all. Number two is things like Android has to be divested, not just Chrome, but the Android smartphone operating system has to be completely different than what Google offers. Additionally, splitting off Chrome is one of those things, but Bloomberg reported that that's only going to be an option to be used if other non-structural remedies fail. So essentially the idea is they're trying to make sure that Google doesn't use its fingers in all of these pies to force everybody to pay more prices for search or various other platform fees that they charge for things like Google Play on the Android store, all of that's been going down in the EU. That's kind of at play here. And so the idea is that Google needs to stop doing that, and there's various different strategies to accomplish that. And now we're in the process of figuring out what that could potentially be. And part of that could be Chrome becomes its own company, gets acquired by somebody else. Who knows how that they're gonna run that gamut. But we'll keep you updated as we get more details on that moving forward. And Reece is moving forward with some deals for you.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals out on the internet. It is Wednesday, my dudes, and I have a couple of deals for you today. Starting off with this Sticklemonster Cube 500 flat pack. This mid-tower ATX case is available in their Macaron colorway for only $79.99 with the coupon applied, making it $20 off. I think these things are really cool. I mean, it comes flat packed and you just have to build it yourself. But then on the other side of things, we have this ASRock Phantom Gaming 34-inch 1440p 165Hz ultra-wide 1500R curved VA gaming monitor going for $198.77, making it $181.22 off. But then shifting the spectrum to something productivity focused, you can grab this Acer 27-inch 4K 60Hz monitor featuring 99% sRGB color coverage and a Delta E score of less than 1. For those wondering, that means color accuracy on these things is very good, and you can pick it up for only $199.99, making it $60 off. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But until next time, I'm gonna hand you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Well, Reece, we've got a clear idea of what the deal is going to be with the next generation AMD GPUs. A well-known leaker coming out and talking about how we're at the end of RDNA. These next generation RX 8000 GPUs that we're expecting to come out in January are going to be the last RDNA GPUs. RDNA 5 is not going to exist. RX 9000 instead is going to be based on a UDNA GPU, which is something that AMD has already talked about. It's their unified architecture because currently they have RDNA for the consumer in gaming, they have CDNA for the cloud and the compute and the high-powered servers, and so they're looking to unify it so that it's one architecture that scales from the bottom all the way to the top. So instead of being RDNA 5, it's going to be UDNA, and that's the general idea with RX 9000. Also with this rumor, it's indicating that the PlayStation 6 will use UDNA instead of RDNA 4, but it also says, very strangely, that the CPU might be Zen 4 or Zen 5, which I don't buy simply because when the PlayStation 5 came out, that was using Zen 2 hardware, which was the bleeding architecture at the time. We're nowhere near the launch of the PlayStation 6. I would expect that we have 2-3 more years with the PlayStation 5 Pro, looking at a 2028 launch for the PlayStation 6, which means we should be likely on Zen 6, Zen 7 by that point, and I would think that they would use that architecture. So Zen 4 and Zen 5 doesn't quite make sense in the reality of what I'm looking at here, but additionally, Sony's handheld that they're expected to come out with is supposed to use AMD hardware. Microsoft's not quite sure. They might go with Qualcomm, and that's kind of it. It's just the details of how they might be moving forward and how they're changing their understanding of their architecture. But we might need to change our understanding of what AMD is involved in. Obviously, they're making money hand over fist in the server cloud compute environment with AI. They're trying with gaming and making consoles and all of that stuff, but it turns out that they might be looking to get into smartphones a little bit more than they have in the past. So this is coming out from Smartphone Magazine, where they discuss the fact that AMD might be looking to leverage their Ryzen AI SoCs, the things that we're now getting in their laptops and otherwise, to potentially be low-powered versions that could go into phones moving forward to compete against Qualcomm and MediaTek, which are both companies that are looking to enter the PC space. We've obviously seen the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chips come in with Windows on ARM. They didn't make a huge splash, but they exist and they're working on it. And then you have MediaTek, who's also ARM-based, is allegedly going to be partnering up with NVIDIA to come out with their own thing. So they're alleging that AMD is actually going to go the opposite route, where they're already in the PC industry and now they're going to step on down to the smartphone industry. This is a tricky one, especially considering the fact that AMD already kind of is involved in the smartphone industry. They've partnered with Samsung to put their RDNA architecture on some of the Exynos SoCs, and they haven't really been well received. They've been too power hungry, they've been too hot in terms of thermals, and it's just kind of not been good overall. But maybe that could change if AMD puts a concerted focus on making their own smartphone SoCs. And this could just be a great transition into the cross leveraging of everybody getting into their various different fields. ARM going into PC, and then x86 companies going into smartphones, and it could transition that way. I wouldn't put a ton of stock in this, especially because there's no real timeline given from this rumor here, but it does indicate that AMD is thinking beyond just where they are right now and potentially might have changes coming for us in the future. And let's see if you guys changed at all in the comments from yesterday's episode of Hot News. We got Scarfo saying, so hot take, with the Blackwell GPUs getting spicy and crypto up again, do we now use the 5090 as a space heater again? As much as I'm not going to give my opinion on crypto here, but I am in favor, if you are going to use a space heater, running your PC as a space heater, mining crypto, does make some form of economical sense, because you're drawing similar amounts of power, especially if it's a high-end GPU, but then it's actually getting converted into something that you could reward yourself monetarily with, whereas a space heater is just heating you up. You could potentially get some extra benefits from doing it. I'm not necessarily against heating up your room doing crypto mining. I think it's an all right idea. Then over on YouTube, Q Daniel saying, Intel 3D V-Cache is good for gaming, but not much for applications. So we will implement it, but only on server CPUs. Sorry, Intel, but your reasoning confuses me. It did for me as well, but I think the subtext in what was being said in that interview is that the architecture base in Xeon chips is better set up to leverage niche applications like 3D V-Cache in a way that can be effective, and they can better product segmentize it, whereas they can't have as many segments in the consumer PC industry. So I know it reads funny, but I think the idea is right from what they're saying. Obviously, I don't agree with the assessment that they shouldn't do gaming, but I think that's why they indicated servers make more sense. There's more product segmentation. There's more separation that they can do with their tile architecture to make that happen. Then Fiery Phoenix calling me out, saying at 59 seconds, you say Battle Mage instead of Blackwell, by the way. I did. It's confusing sometimes. My mouth slipped. I talked about both yesterday, and I apologize. It's hard for me to keep it straight. I will keep trying to say the right company's names, code names, correctly. Whew. And then Maxim saying, that Intel versus AMD chart is really scary, not gonna lie. It is, but also it is simply a chart from one retailer in one country in one section of the world, so it's not representative of AMD and Intel's total market share. It's just the current sales process, and part of that might also be because, I don't know if you've tried to get a Core Ultra 9285K, but they're not easily in stock right now, so that could be one of the reasons why the sales are down, is because the new thing that Intel launched isn't even in anybody's inventory. So it makes it difficult to sell it, and whereas AMD has inventory. So that's part of it. And then if you look at total market share of desktop CPUs, Intel is still number one. They have the vast majority of desktop CPUs, especially because they're in OEMs and pre-builts and all that kind of stuff. And then we got Endorsed Meme with some huge copium, and man, I wish I had your enthusiasm for the future, saying Intel Battle Mage will be 15% faster than the RTX 4090 and cost $799, and it will use only 220 watts. Man, I wish I could be you. What a thought. Oh man, I wish I could believe that. And then we got Druv saying the real reason why Intel hadn't adopted 3D V-Cache yet is because before Arrow Lake, Intel's monolithic architecture was not bottlenecked by its connection to the I/O die, which is called the Infinity Fabric by AMD. So it would actually have benefited their CPUs to have the 3D V-Cache technology. But now that Intel has moved to chiplet design, which they're calling Foveros by Intel, their I/O would be similarly bottlenecked like the Ryzen CPUs. But since this is essentially their first time doing it on desktop, it's going to take them some time to figure out how exactly they're going to implement implement the 3D V-cache into the Foveros chiplet design. Yeah, their tile-based architecture is a big departure from things that have happened previously, and I think that's probably part of it. It's just, it's an engineering challenge. It's engineering more than it is marketing and segmentation, but I don't think that's good PR for them to come out and say, hey, we haven't quite figured out how to make it work. Whereas, like, obviously AMD's figured out how to make it work, and you can't ever admit that you might have some challenges with engineering. Like, we saw this with Intel's move to 10 nanometers. They just kept delaying it, but they couldn't come out and just like outrightly admit, we don't know how to get this working. They just kept pushing back the launch of it, and they just kind of skirted around the idea that, hey, we're having an engineering complication for our fabs and for our architecture, and it's not, we can't make it. We don't know how to make it. We can't figure it out, which is essentially what ended up happening at the end of the day, which sucks, right? Like, you have some of the world's most intelligent, most skilled, most devoted engineers working on these problems, and then to come out and be like, hey, we actually can't launch this thing that we thought we could. It's a big letdown overall, and it's just bad marketing to say that even with all these resources, we're not gonna be able to achieve what we thought we could achieve. So I get it. It's tricky. And then we got Ryan saying, Reece without a hoodies? Is he sick? No, I think he's fine. I don't know. Man doesn't always have to wear a hoodie. And I don't always have to be here. I'm gonna be back tomorrow for more of the hottest tech news. Maybe. We'll see how it goes.